would like, we will get started with the tennis balls. If you want to lie back on them, they can be on top of your shoulders. No rush, you have all the time you need. And just start with them there and lie down on them. Yeah, and then just kind of exhale, let everything go. Take a couple breaths here. Then if you'd like, if you're like, ooh, this feels good, I want a little deeper, you can lift hips. If not, just stay. But you can lift hips, and I kind of just gently kind of maybe move back and forth a little bit if I want to really get in there. But you don't have to do any of that. It's just like where some days I'm like, I am not lifting my hips. This is enough. So just play around with that. And then you can bring hips down and exhale, because like you may have been holding your breath. And then move those balls down a little more. Arms can go out to your side. And first here, just kind of exhale fully. Naturally, you'll inhale. Just a couple breaths noticing here. They shouldn't be on any spots where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm super tense. If you want here, you can lift your hips. And you can move here. Just make sure you check in that you're still breathing. And that will be the hard part, is still breathing through this. When we're kind of focused on something is when we want to hold our breath. And when you want to, go ahead and bring those hips down. And take a couple breaths here. And then go ahead, roll back a little bit or lift up, put the tennis balls a little lower. So now they're kind of, gosh, not really at the base of my shoulder blades, but yeah, I guess toward the bottom a little bit. Just find a spot that feels okay. There are some spots down here where I can't go right on them, so just find a spot. Now here, lifting hips can be super intense the further we go down. So up to you if you're like, gosh, that would feel good. If you're like, no, move your arms. So inhale, lift arms up and behind you. Exhale, bring them back forward and down beside you. And just play around with that. And like I said, some days I'm like, this is enough, and I'm not moving arms or hips at all, and that's okay. Because it's really not about, oh, I have to force this to dig in deep. It's about letting your breath do the work and letting it just take place over time. Awesome. If you feel like there's one more spot that would feel good, go ahead. If you want to be down a little more, this is like my mid upper back, maybe like really more even toward the bottom of my shoulder blade. And this is a spot that can feel really stuck to me. So you play around. Now, if you don't want to lift hips or lift arms, but you're like, gosh, I want to move a little, bring your feet a little more wider than hip distance, and just move your knees a little back and forth. Yeah, play around. If you're like, ooh, yeah, I really want to dig in here and it would feel good, feel free to do one of the others. Or just lie in stillness. And then just go ahead and bring both knees together if that feels okay. And just notice that. If it doesn't feel good, come on out of it. So they're like toward center, toward each other. And then if it feels okay, bring knees back up, extend legs long. Maybe bring arms up above, and maybe that's too much. Come back to anything if you're like, ooh, no, that's a spot where I'm doing more harm than good. And then go ahead, bring arms out to your side and bring them down toward your body. Yes. And then go ahead and roll off those tennis balls. Set them aside. They might roll away on you, that's okay. And just take A couple breaths lying on back. You choose if knees are bent. Sometimes that can make low back feel better, or if legs are extended long. And just take a breath here. Slowly turn head from one side to the other, just kind of waking up neck and releasing tension there. And then hug knees in and massage that low back. So we did a lot on the upper back, and sometimes then the low back can kind of be the one compensating. So you can rock back and forth, side to side. You can make figure eights with your knees, whatever feels good here. Yeah. Then extend the left leg out long, heel to the mat. Right knee in gently. Left arm is going to go out to your side as well, like straight out, like it's partly making a letter T with your body. And then just start to move that right knee in circles. And it's less about the circle, more about slowly going and pausing wherever you need to. Or I'm sorry, that right knee. I think I said left. And left heel is on the ground. Foot is flexed a little bit like you're standing, like you would be if you're standing, but a little softness in the knee. So just play around with that. And then reverse directions of the knee. And again, if there's just any like stuck spots, just pause there. Yeah, awesome. And then we'll bring both knees in, keep that left knee, extend the right leg out long, heel to the mat. And just notice this. Notice if you're bringing tension in the low back here, and just play around with like, I like to like wiggle my hips a little, like how can I soften that? And then start bringing that left knee in circles, nice and slow, just noticing. And yeah, there's a spot where, gosh, I'm trying to keep my shoulders okay, where I'm not touching the knee, but I just, use it to kind of hug it in. And when it feels right, reverse those circles. Yeah. Awesome. And then go ahead and hug both knees in. And you choose if you want to roll onto your side and come up to seated, or rock back and forth like an egg and come up to seated. Yeah. If you have a yoga block or something to sit on, you might want that handy. We are going to go into a little thigh stretch here. So you're going to come onto your knees and then sit back on your feet. And maybe this is enough. Maybe you want to bring heels out a little bit and sit either down on the ground, or maybe you want that block under you. It's just wherever you feel a stretch, and it won't be a big stretch by any means. This is like just a little starter. We don't want knees to hurt. We never want knees to feel bad at all. Sometimes going into this, it'll be more like your ankles, top of the feet that bother you. So, kind of check in with that. Come in a little closer if it feels okay. Awesome. Then if it feels okay from here, bring hands behind you and chest forward. Lift hips just a little, just a gentle, and play around. If you're like, Christy, there's no way that this is working, don't worry. And then bring hips down. Walk forward here, and we'll come on to hands and knees. So hands and knees here. And first we're just going to freestyle. So maybe knees are wide and you're just going to circle hips, just move shoulders, just honestly move in any way that feels good to you. Just checking in with your body today. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, let the head hang. Let the head get heavy. We hold the head up all day and it's heavy. Awesome. And then go ahead and check that wrists, elbows, and shoulders are lined up. And inhale, bring chest forward, head up. Little stretch here. Exhale, arch your back. Let your head hang. Press away, separating shoulder blades. Yes. Yeah, and just continue that with your breath. Inhaling. chest forward, head up, collarbones, like shoulders almost feel like they're moving opposite directions a tiny bit. Exhale, arch back, let head hang, press away, separating shoulder blades here. And we'll do that one more time. Awesome. And then bring knees comfortably wide and bring hips back to your feet, forehead toward mat for child's pose if this feels okay. You can always have a block in front of you, blanket in front of you, pillow to hug. If you really don't like this, you can move on to your back and hug knees in. You choose to stay still here or wiggle hips just a little bit, just with like an awareness of like, gosh, what's going on in my body here? How are my inner hips feeling? How are my upper thighs feeling? Maybe you even kind of move foreheads on the mat and you move head back and forth, massaging forehead on the mat. Or maybe you're like me some days and you're like, Christy, my forehead is not reaching the mat. That's okay. Walk fingers out in front of you as far as they can go. And they're shoulder width apart still. Inhale, come back onto hands and knees. Bring knees back under hips. Curl, actually first, grab your blocks. You will want them a little near you here. And then come back to however it is. So you're about in tabletop, but hands are about one handprint in front of where they are. They're not straight under your shoulders. They're a little more in front. Curl toes under, lift hips up and back for downward dog. Shoulders away from ears, push hips up and back and pedal those heels out. Stretching calves, hamstrings, wherever the heck you feel it in your body, might be different. And then we're going to inhale, lift right leg in the air, not super high, just behind you. Exhale, hug it in toward your belly, lean forward, drop it down. Your hand might have to help it, that's okay. Bring back knee down, release those toes, hands to the front thigh, rise up. Yeah. Adjust here. So maybe that front foot wants to go forward a little bit, out a little more, adjust wherever you want. And then really gently scissor hips together a little bit here. So like these inner thighs want to come toward each other a tiny bit. And then if it feels okay, you can sink hips a little. Just playing around with, you should feel it in this back hip and the hip flexor there. Inhale, reach arms up. Exhale, bend over to the right. Feeling a stretch in that left side body, that left hip there. Inhale, back center. Exhale, over to the right again. So it's just tiny bit. It's not your biggest stretch you can do, but a little stretch over time. Inhale, back center. Exhale to the right once more. Inhale, back center. Exhale, you're going to bring both hands down to inside this leg. So this front leg might go out to the side a little. You might want your blocks here, or even one of them, to bring your hands to. And then you can kind of, when you bring that front foot forward a little and off to the side, you can kind of move your hips forward too. Yeah, play around with what feels good. And check that you're not like arching those shoulders, so press up out of the shoulders if you can, if you've got blocks, peanut butter jars, whatever you're using. And some people like have enough room that they want to go down to the ground. But it's more about checking in with shoulders, like where are shoulders feeling okay when we're still doing the hips. And you can change like the setting your blocks are on, how high they are. So just find what feels good to you and then breathe. Exhale fully. Naturally, you'll take an inhale. Feel as if your inhales are creating space wherever you're feeling a stretch. And your exhales are like release, some space is made. Awesome. Come back to center. So scoot hips back a little, move your foot back to center. If your back knee is getting tired, you can fold up your mat or put something under there. And then this time we're going to come up high, straighten that front leg, back toward center a little bit. Scissor hips together here. Inhale, grow nice and tall from your torso. And then exhale, hinging at the hips, fold forward. So it's just about feeling that stretch. Yeah, and we can make little movements here with playing around with what happens when you point the toes? What happens when you flex the toes? Just like where, and find some softness in there of where does it feel to get a good stretch. If you want to get really crazy, you can feel as if you're pointing the big toe side of your foot, but flexing toward your body, the little toes. And it might not actually be happening. That's okay. But you can think about it. Breathe here. Make sure knee isn't locked. That front knee, there's a little bit of softness there. One more breath. Beautiful. And then go ahead, bring that front leg back a little. Come back onto hands and knees. You can set blocks aside. And bring knees nice and wide, hips back toward your feet, forehead toward the mat for child's pose here, if that feels okay. Just notice a little bit here. Walk fingers back out in front of you. Stretch shoulders a little bit here. So lift head a little and just move shoulders back and forth a little here. And then inhale, come onto hands and knees. Bring knees back under your hips. Curl toes under, lift hips up and back for downward dog. Shoulders away from ears, push hips up and back. Feel like there's little weights on your heels. So it's not like they're pressing back, but there's magnets. They're like attracted toward the mat. They don't have to be pressing full force, but they're just attracted there, and shift some weight back to your feet a little. Notice a difference maybe in legs. Inhale, lift the left leg up, just extending behind you, not super high. Exhale, hug it into your body, lean forward, sit it down. Help it if you need to. Bring that back knee down. If you want to roll up your mat in half to help your knee here, feel free, or have something else under there. Hands to the front thigh, rise up. Scissor hips together. Here, maybe that front leg wants to move over to the side or forward. Uncurl the back toes. Inhale, reach arms up. Exhale, bend to the left. Beautiful. Yeah, and you can clasp hands or not, whatever feels good. Inhale, back center. Exhale, up tall, then over to the left. So it's like not moving a whole lot, but feeling that stretch. Inhale, back center. Exhale, over to the left once more. Yeah, you might be wobbly as well. Inhale, back center. Exhale, both hands are going to come down inside that front foot. Pick your block setting. It might be different than the other leg. Move that front foot forward a little bit and off toward the left. Scissor inner thighs together a little bit, and then you can dip forward with your hips. Lean forward with hips. Check on shoulders. Should be strong here, so not slouching in the shoulders, but pushing out from them, but then soften so that you're not bringing tension there. Let head, just play around with like, where does head feel best, where I'm not having to hold it up, it's not causing any issues. Breathe here. Again, those exhales or inhales are creating the space. Exhales are moving in. A little more space is here. Beautiful. And start to rise up. Bring that foot back to center. One block on each side. Straighten that front leg. Scissor hips together again here, like inner thighs are coming toward each other. Grow nice and tall from the torso. And then hinge at the hips to fold forward a little bit. It's not about how forward can you go, it's about where do you feel that stretch. Play around with the toes. Maybe pointing feels best to you today. Maybe flexing. Maybe you feel as if you're pointing the big toe side of your foot and bringing the other little toes toward you. And it's okay if it's a feeling and not actually happening. And then exhale fully. Inhale. And play around with the idea, and maybe on each exhale, you go into it a little deeper. And it's like nobody even knows you're doing it except for you, so it's just a tiny, subtle movement. Beautiful. Inhale, start to rise up. Bring that front foot back and come down onto hands and knees. Set blocks aside. Bring knees nice and wide. Move hips back to your feet. Forehead toward the mat for child's pose here. Yeah. And same stuff as before if you want to massage forehead, or maybe you just want stillness. We've been moving a lot. So if your body is craving stillness, give it stillness. Inhale, come back onto hands and knees. Bring knees back under hips and then lower all the way down to your belly here. Yeah, bring hands to your chest alongside your chest here. And bring those shoulders, like the shoulder blades are pulling back behind you just a tiny bit, but also in opposite direction. So they're not squeezing together. And then soften. And inhale, lower down. Feel tops of the feet onto the mat. Feet are a little bit wider than hip distance. Exhale, stretch forward to lift up a little. Chest comes forward, tuck chin so you're pointing with the crown of your head. Exhale, lower. Inhale, rise, tucking, pointing with crown of your head. And not just rising up, but kind of stretching forward as well. Lower down. You're going to rise one more time on an exhale. Exhale, rise. And if you want to come all the way up, straighten arms, feel free. If this, just find the point. They won't be totally straight where it feels okay. You don't want to hurt low back here. Exhale, lower down. Make a little basket, hands on top of each other. Rest forehead or cheek on your mat or your hands. And then bend knees here. And windshield wiper your knees back and forth a little bit here. Yeah, good job. Then go ahead, lay those legs down. We'll take a couple more breaths here. We're going to roll onto our backs here, and you may have to, however it makes sense to you, but you'll want those tennis balls again, and we're kind of on the opposite side of our mat, so you might have to go grab them. So lying down on your back. This time we're going to take those tennis balls, and we are going to stick them underneath us on the low back. You don't want to be on your spine, but between kind of where the ribs meet and where the hip is, like that meaty part there. And it's called your QL. And you choose if you want both in at the same time, if that's okay, or if that's too much, then you can choose just one at a time. Arms can go out at your side here. And then there's a couple things you can do if you're like, gosh, I want to feel a little more. Or you can just kind of exhale, release. You can lift hips just a tiny bit, like so a piece of paper could slide underneath them. And you can just kind of move them back and forth a little bit, but go really slow. And check that you're not bringing tension in anywhere else. Maybe especially that you're not squeezing your glutes for dear life. No squeezing those butt cheeks. That's kind of where I like to compensate, especially down here. I find myself gripping there. So just play around here. And then when you need to lower, like don't, stay in that tension and adjust them. So they can be anywhere that feels okay as long as they're not on the spine. Like directly in the middle of the spine. I moved mine a little closer to the spine, a little closer together. And then you can keep hips down here and play around with, like, if you want to move knees a little bit. Or like I said, you can just kind of be in stillness. If there's any like severe pain here, you know, kidneys are down low here or whatever, we don't want sharp pain. So avoid that. Move to a different spot if any of that is happening. And then you can bring knees back to center. And if you want, if you're getting into good stuff and you want to stay here, stay here. Otherwise, move them down to kind of a meaty part of your butt if you'd like. I like to go kind of on the top. It's still like meaty part, but also close to close to the pelvic bones, because there's a lot of connective tissue there that's connecting pelvis to hips, to legs, you know, up toward ribs, everywhere, that can get really tight. We can store a lot of stuff in that connective tissue and our fascia. And I just kind of roll side to side a little here. You play around, just like what feels good to you. So it's not a super intense digging in, and you can pause and move them back to a spot if you need to. Just kind of light massaging that area. Wonderful. Take a couple breaths here. And when you're ready, you're going to remove those balls, set them aside. If it feels okay, extend legs long. If you have blocks or anything, even peanut butter jars, whatever you brought, you can put them under your knees if that feels okay. You can try it out. If it doesn't feel okay, don't worry. And legs can be comfortably wide, knees can be bent or legs straight. Just like find what is your most relaxing moment. And you're at home, so if you want pillow, blanket, whatever, feel free. Arms can go out at your side. Option if you want to close your eyes. Release tension from your jaw, whatever that means to you, and know that it's enough. Soften eyes. Let shoulders move a little bit down toward your feet, and then maybe sink into the ground a little. Notice the parts of your body, starting at the top of your head, that are connecting the ground to the ground here. Maybe head, back of head, shoulders and back, down to your arms. Maybe you can even open hands up a little more, so just a little more of the back of the hand, or maybe fingers are touching the ground. Nothing too strenuous, so don't feel like it has to be everything, but just a little more open here. And you have your natural curve in low back, so that's probably not touching, but move down to tailbone. And maybe above tailbone, part of the top of the butt area here. Maybe out to some hips, your bottom, some of your legs, calves, heels. Feet are just flopped here. And just take some full breaths, inhales that feel like they go all the way from your feet to the top of your head. And exhales that feel like they go from the top of your head all the way through your body down to your feet. Sometimes when it can be too much to find a guided practice to listen to or move my body or think of something to do, I can come to just lying on the ground like this. And it can give our body an amazing break. Provide some grounding, feeling like we're kind of grounded, connected to the earth and not flying around through life, trying to do all the things in the shortest amount of time. Bring awareness to your breath here. Don't change it, just notice it. Notice, where do you feel it? And you can start to lengthen those inhales and exhales. Bring tiny little wiggles of movement to the feet and toes. Starting really tiny and maybe growing from there. And slowly turn your head from one side to the other. Just waking up. On an inhale, reach arms up above, extend legs long. And then go ahead and bring feet to the mat, knees in the air, and roll on to your side here, whatever side would feel good. And take a couple breaths on your side here. And then slowly make your way up to seated. Beautiful. Relax, shoulders down, away from ears. Sit comfortably tall, but then soften. Like, where are you holding tension, where you can soften. Inhale, reach arms up. Palms together. Exhale, thumbs to heart. Touch them here. Bring a smile to your face and think of one thing you are grateful for today. One last smile to your face. And thank you so much for practicing with me today.